Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Basic Education has now passed the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill. The bill now goes to the National Assembly and then to the National Council of Provinces. It includes proposals that will see education departments having more power over the language policies at school. At the moment, governing bodies of schools have the final say over the language the school uses. This has led to claims that some schools may be using Afrikaans as a language of instruction and thus turning away black children from that school. Riaan Van der Bergh is the Deputy CEO of the Federation of Governing Bodies of South African Schools. He joins us now. Riaan, good afternoon to you and thank you for coming in. There's several changes that will be coming through as a result of all of this. There's still quite a few processes to go through. I expect the language issue is probably going to be the most contentious. Do you see this as a big change, giving the government more power to decide on language policy as opposed to governing bodies?
Yes, I think one of the key issues is what you just mentioned, giving government more power. And I think that's one of the key issues for us. You know, the schools that are functioning well, operating well, probably don't need all the government resources to go check up on them. And the schools that are dysfunctional need more resources. So more government in areas where it works well is what we see. And I think a lot of well, just half of the previous segment of Eskom is telling you where government is more involved, we see cracks. And that gives rise to, I think our argument about a public school being a public school and not a state school. The Schools Act and the dispensation that we live in is for a partnership between the community and government to deliver quality education. And definitely, I think language and admission will be a tough point to debate in the very short future.
So, I mean, the issue is, and I mean, we can talk about language policy and all sorts of principles, but in the end, it comes down to a sort of horrible ritual that we often see at the beginning of the school year, where you have schools, the accusation is that they're using language policy, Afrikaans, to keep black children out of that school. Black children in the area who need to go to school, they qualify on every other case because of where they live, but they don't get to come in because of language. And the result of that is that you sometimes see schools, you drive past them wherever, that look almost entirely white. Now, these are government schools. That surely can't be allowed to continue. And if language is being used for that purpose, something has to change.
Yeah, it's a difficult debate because I don't think that language, which is a sound, should be equated to color, which is the skin color. I think language is a constitutional right. And if an Afrikaans school is not full, there's capacity, and then that should be filled with learners that need schooling. But if an Afrikaans school is full, and an English school is full, and let's not even talk about the other languages in the country which are not catered for. If the schools are full, there's no capacity. It's very easy to throw the accusation that the school does not want to take any more learners. We've got a capacity problem, especially in this province. It's growing in the Western Cape as well. So even if all Afrikaans schools, so-called, which are not all white, most Afrikaans speakers in the country are brown, if all Afrikaans schools become English schools, there won't be seats because changing the language policy does not create capacity. And that, I think, is one of the key problems, especially in this province, but all around the country. So it's multi-dimensional. There are more facets to it than just language and being white. It's part of the discussion, but no child that wants to go to school in Afrikaans is denied entry to an Afrikaans school. It's a language thing. And I think that's the debate that needs to be kind of, just that scrambled egg needs to be unscrambled.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I would suggest, and I think the accusation would be that a language is being used as a proxy for race. In other words, it's, and language comes with more than just words. It can come with culture. It can come with the choice of sport, rugby rather than football, no football at all, whatever. The point I'm trying to get to is that it seems, as has happened in the past, that language can be used almost as a political tool. Now, this gets complicated because your immediate response to that would be, well, why should government get to wield the political tool rather than a community?
Yeah, I think that's part of what the Schools Act, some legal precedents have said, but the school governing body stands in a position of trust to the community. And that's our position as well. There should be no unfair discrimination. But fair discrimination is something to be defined because, you have choice. Parents have a choice of which school to choose based on their learner's personality, the DNA, the extramurals offered by the school. So there's a lot more in it than just, okay, let's draw a line and color it in as a language issue and then fix the problems. As I said, I think one of the key elements is the community is more involved in the school. It's not a state school, it's not a government school, it's a public school, and that becomes the narrative. And for government to come in, I want what's best for my child, and I think let's start there. We all want what's best for our children, and the right to education is the constitutional right. The obligation of government to deliver that is their obligation, but we must not infringe from the obligation to take away from the right of the parents. And yeah, if we have quality education, if we have access to education, I think a lot of the problems will disappear. But especially if we talk about the narrative in Gauteng, all the schools are overcrowded and full. Changing the language policy of another school will not fix the migration problems, will not fix the capacity problems, and will definitely also not fix the, let's call it the dysfunctional, the bad education problems.
One of the things that's interesting about a governing body, and we can move away from the language argument, we'll come back to it, is that a governing body probably serves the interests of the children who are at the school at the time. So it serves the interests of the parents who are at the school at the time. So is there any way that a governing body could better serve the community, not by necessarily having community organizations, but what government is maybe trying to do, perhaps on their side of the argument, is to give the parents of children who are yet to come to the school a voice? And wouldn't it be a fair criticism to say that voice is probably missing from governing bodies?
Yeah, it could be, depending on the context, but there are checks and balances in the legal framework. A school is situated where it is, it's on government property, and it has a feeder zone which is demarcated and set out in a partnership between the school governing body, the current school governing body, as well as government. So there's a priority placement, already a sense of fair and unfair discrimination. If you're closer to the school, you deserve to go to that school. But that being said, if the demographics around a school changes, that community becomes the owner of that school. And their voice, the interest of that community, and the position of trust of the governing body towards that community should take precedent. Yes, so a school only functions when there is, feet walking there, when the admissions are full. That is when a school actually functions.
This is going to be a big political issue. It goes to the National Assembly now. I'm almost certain that one political party will oppose it, probably a relatively small one, but I think that will happen, maybe more than that. It's also likely that someone will go to court. You represent governing bodies, and they would be the people who are losing power here, ceding some of that power to government. Do you expect court action? Would you go to court on this?
Yeah, I think we've already prepared ourselves to say there's a few deal breakers in the initial bill as it was presented to the Portfolio Committee. And language and admission is a big issue for us, for governing bodies, for schools. and I think, yeah, we might be getting ourselves ready to see how the process folds. There are two things. There's process and there's content. And on the process side of the I think the Bella discussion started in 2017. Suddenly it's been rushed through in this late stage of this administration. It would appear that education is a highly emotive political pawn that's always being used. And yes, so that might be it. But it's still got to go through National Assembly, National Council of provinces still need to have a look at it. And there's already been a few changes to the original bill. But we're still very concerned about language policy, admission policy, and probably more so concerned about the usurpment of power. More government is not necessarily the greatest answer for us. So yeah, we definitely might be looking at getting ourselves ready.
Government will say they pay most of the fees to run the school.
They might, yes.
There are other issues, some of them not quite as contentious. At one point it looked like the issue around alcohol being sold on school property, so after hours at functions to raise money, was going to be quite contentious. That clause has now been dropped. Are you happy with that?
We were in support of that clause being in because schools do fundraising and not Not all contexts are the same, so controlled fundraising could have been good for schools because sustainability is an issue. But we're very happy to walk away from that because that's not core business. Our core business is the interest of the child, mother language instruction, quality education, and parental involvement. You know, so yeah, definitely. We're okay to walk away from that one. The other contentious issue was the financial disclosure of governing body members who volunteer on a governing body, and that would have really, I think, put a spanner in the works of people, you know, standing for a governing body position. So yeah, some of the changes already, you know, happy with, but we're still very concerned about language and admission.
Riaan Van der Bergh, thank you. Deputy CEO of the Federation of Governing Bodies of South African Schools. Well, more news to